Either side of a congested road lie 2 rows of terraced houses. Enter Dad's front door and you go through a vestibule into a front parlour, and through that into a back kitchen. Beyond this lies the yard, a hard surface of paving slabs, 3 feet wide, 12 feet long. Either side a brick wall high enough to mark a boundary, but still allowing for neighbourly morning greetings, grumbles about the weather, less commonly updates of births and deaths, more commonly shenanigans between the two. The washing line cuts a diagonal swathe across, and in warmer weather than today would obscure any passage with billowing sheets or towels hardening in brisk winds and infrequent sunlight. At the opposite end of the yard is a red wooden gate. When unlatched, it allows passage to the backs, a strip of dirt that runs the length of the 50 or so terraced houses on the street. In winter, a mucky rivulet runs the centre of the backs and ruins football pitches, cricket wickets, and shoes picking their way to leave bins for collecting. Across this strip of winter sludge and summer dust is a series of random fencing, crafted from reclaimed wood, de-industrialised gates, old signs and mismatched trellis. And beyond this ramshackle boundary lies another world. The world of the pens has existed as long as the houses. The earliest block built for farm labourers. The strips of smallholding fenced from the agricultural land was way beyond them. These pens offered subsistence, not gardens for pleasure but for food. A space to swap wage labour for graft paid in root vegetables, fruits and leaves. The terraces grew tenfold to accommodate the reapers of a 300 million year old harvest in subterranean fields. Coal brought new inhabitants from the surrounding fields, from Wales, Lithuania, Poland, to hew the rock, formed in ancient sunlight and cloud their own with its belching murk. Within the pens, these slivers of dirt open to the skies allow more than food on plates. Disappearing lives, histories of land and season, skills in agriculture and cultivation were kept as tiny cultures, traded and passed between generations. Cultures from the east and west, dunked in darkness together during the waged week, created spaces to share as they grew. Miserable wages meant feasting came from the abundance this freed labour brought. A liberation of tilling and heaving, caring and nurturing that partially fended off the poison of the pits and the brutal practices of paid work. The mines have long gone. The slag heaps of the Wigan Alps now themselves return to a greener today. The flooded pits a lake sanctuary for birds. The millions of tons of rock dragged from its resting place, now a series of ash forests, meadows, bird hides. These 3 sisters of tortured earth now bringing a wildness that masks the muscle-ripping endeavour, the mile below explosions that strip men of life and limb. The gentleness as the earth reaches again to the sun and forgets the pulse of humanity that brought us here. In the pens, some legacy remains of these unfolding communities of families and their struggles to survive. Here in the pen we continue to grow, if less now, different now. More of the land beyond the still trembling fences is given to lawn, furniture, to recline, trampolines, to bounce, flowers, inedible plants. Bird tables offer pet warehouse grain and seed to replace the seasonal abundance lying amongst tilled soil, crawling about leaves and bark. Lost now are my own gnarled child hands, black from digging, spud patch, weeding, scratched by nettles, soothed by docks. But by that old potato patch, now mowed, not struck with spade, is a strip of history. 50 golden crowns that shock a history of another world and reminds us of the fleeting nature of our own. Rhubarb. In a strand of earth that runs the length of the pen, this leafy, waist-high forest was the first thing our octogenarian neighbour showed us as he passed on the pen. In the mid-1970s, Mr. Davis, a miner for 50 years and growing for all those and more, waved his arms about these vain swathes of greenery. Russian gold, he told us, flourishing when he took the pen on the late 1920s, bursting with late summer growth now as he showed scant regard to the rest of the plot. As we took in the fruit bushes, the onions laid out, the coal frame made from some demolished house windows decades earlier, we came back again and again to the rhubarb. Into the shed, then as now a series of old doors and one grimy window, dominated inside by an oil-soaked sleeper bench, the air rich with oil and of wooden-handled tools worn smooth by never-ending activity. It was to the grimy window we went. Great view of the rhubarb, he said. These crowns were the touchstone to a whole lost history, of dipped stalks in sugar, of Mrs. Davis's crumbles and pies, of ruddy-coloured wine and summers sipping away a sunset. He talked of trading these riches, wrapped in newspaper, a prize from the East. He told us of stalks in jack-bit tin, consumed a mile beneath the sunlit earth and bringing just a little light to that darkness. Back we went, to his own handover from the miner that started this crop, brought over from Lithuania or Poland or somewhere in sacks, a few at a time. The times when the Baltic farms gave labour for summer and the Lancashire underground fields took the rest for winter. He reckoned that the crowns were 70 or 80 years old as him, but dealing with it a bit better. Dad remembered Mrs. Davis giving us a dozen stalks in newspaper when they moved in, that symbol of kindness, an ancient one. Purple stalks, hard as the arms that cut it, and still this miniature forest of ancient wealth gives its bounty. These huge, waving, poisonous leaves, the proud and relentless stalks, the pulse of a lifetime of which our own is only fleeting. The houses and the rhubarb, solid fixtures for more than a century as all the waves of humanity that brought them have gone. Back out of the pen, across the backs, over the yard and through the house, and onto a road now choked with a blue smog of Saharan oil, replacing the murky haze of coal fires. The parting gift, if you time it right, the newspaper's packaged stalks of Russian gold from Dad, himself the octogenarian. The headlines change in that inky wrapping, but an ancient thread runs through those veins, and ours.
that was just easy. There's about 40 holes at one.